Welcome to the Smoke and Rope Podcast. I'm your host today, Kevin Pybus with True Cannabis. I'll be filling in for our good friend Ryan Basor, who is out from having a new baby boy. So, big congratulations to Ryan and his wife. We hope nothing but the best for you guys, and a healthy baby is great. So, congratulations. Today is episode 69. We've got Ryan Ratzloff from Lion Labs with us today. Ryan, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And as always, we've got our good friend Tom Beller over at Relief Solutions. Tom, how's the weather up
Ge-
there?
Gentlemen, oh, we've got about 3 inches of snow, man.
Ooh,
Yep. More
well,
coming.
yeah. Well, I heard we're getting close to that down here. The day is coming sooner than later, so hopefully we can hold off a little bit longer. But anyway, Ryan, it's great to have you on the show. Ryan, like I said, is the CEO over at Lion Labs here in Lansing, Michigan, where I actually have my facilities. And so Ryan and I have had some good interactions. We've worked together, and I know he runs a great operation over there. So Ryan, if you could real quick give us a rundown of who Ryan is and what about Lion Labs.
Sure. Thanks for having me, guys. So I'm Ryan Ratzloff. I'm the president and CEO of Lion Labs. If you're unfamiliar, we're a larger processor. We don't grow. We don't do retail. We specialize in live resin extraction, distillate. We'll be rolling out some solvent this year, probably by the end of the year. But our three big brands that we get behind are Element, Rise, our medically focused tablets, tinctures, creams, lotions, etc., and Dream caramels. Those are the three brands that we represent. We do a little bit of white labeling and third-party processing as well for some friends around the state of Michigan.
Yeah, like I said, you guys done some work for me and with the Redemption family, and we appreciate what you guys do. You guys do a great job over there and run a really good operation. And that all being said, we wanted to bring you on the show today. I was talking to Nate yesterday, knowing that Ryan was going to be out, and we were trying to figure out someone that we could kind of talk to about the outdoor season. We're in Croptober. Most of the outdoor stuff is in by now, and when we were kind of racking our brains, I thought, you and I had some really good conversations about, you going out in the field this year and preemptively kind of figuring out some contracts and working through some things to try to stock up for Lion Labs for the upcoming season. And so I figured you'd be a great person to talk to about that. And so that being said, I was kind of wondering how was the outdoor season this year compared to years of past?
So far, what we've been receiving has been pretty good. We're really happy. I think 80% of the strains and groups that we've picked to work with so far have delivered an exceptionally high level of terpenes that are really true to the characteristics of the strains that we're looking, to put out with Element. This year, we spent a tremendous amount of time in the fields, 2 to 3, 4 days a week for the better 8 to 10 weeks. Going back to farms we have good relationships with, visiting with farmers, checking the status of the plants. As you guys know, we're in Michigan. You guys got a couple inches of snow. I saw there's even more. So far, Lansing looks fine. But the climate varies dramatically from the UP down to the border. So, it was important for us to cherry pick the best outdoor flower from each garden. Element has enough of a reach that we can buy significant amounts if it's good. We're still in the process right now of qualifying those strains. So I probably hit 30 to 40 outdoor gardens. And we started narrowing that down to pick, who we thought was going to be able to actually deliver the best high quality fresh frozen material. It's interesting because I think there's a big kind of misnomer that outdoor flower isn't as good as indoor flower. And if you're looking at, bag appeal, I think you're right. If you're smoking just the flower, there's probably a lot of things that are more desirable from an indoor perspective. But for us, no one's ever going to see the flower. We're only interested in the terpenes. So we're out in the field squishing every strain from every grower, hunting for what we think is going to be the loudest, what's going to be truest to, the genetics that are represented. And unfortunately, the tricky part about that is just like curing, how you harvested and how you froze that weed and how you got it here safely is just as critical as the 3 to 4 months you spent, getting into that point. And so, we did see a lot of really great attempts at growing. That unfortunately those groups, kind of eliminated themselves as the season went on because disease sometimes will creep through and take out a giant chunk of an outdoor garden. We saw people lose 3,000 plants at once. They got their plants in too early, lost them all to frost. And then even some of the very best growers that we think did the best job out of everyone ran into, Borrelia or some late stage issues that disqualified those strains or plants from coming in. I'd say overall from, everything we saw, we'd probably be looking at, single digits on the percent that we'll actually bring in here that'll end up qualifying for the quality that'll go into element. And we're still qualifying now. So, we'll take 50 to 100 pounds of each strain that we identified early as something we like, and we'll do a test run to make sure that it's going to come out without having a lot of risk before we lean in to make it more of a staple and to, bring it to a THCA or a cured resin if it was dried, and a live resin and a cartridge and all the other types of products we like to put it out in the market.
I have a question about terpenes, and because of the growing season in Michigan, obviously choosing your genetics is the most important thing when you go to grow outdoor, and it has to be. And Michigan is very regional in its climate too, so a lot of microclimates, and people really need to focus on their genetics before you just start throwing plants outside. But because of that narrow, I'd say narrow window of genetics that can successfully be brought full term and properly managed all the way through to even test for the terpene development, are there certain terpenes that you find are more prominent in outdoor plants in Michigan than if you had a longer growing season?
That's a good question. I haven't really analyzed the specific terpenes. Typically we're looking for unique profiles. If it's a lemon or an orange flavor, is it distinct in a certain way? We're sourcing directly for element, and we want, people to either smoke that strain and go, oh, I know what this is supposed to smell like and taste like, and this nails it, or it isn't. If it's off, people overall don't have a good impression of that. So not specific probably to the actual terpene that's more abundant, because we're looking for, kind of one-offs anyway that are a little more unique. If it, one thing we don't want to get into is this just smells and tastes like weed, where it has more of a generic overall weed taste. I'm not, not interested in that. Yeah. For the things that are overly abundant in the, the more common terpenes.
Sure. Yes, those have their own specific, set of entourage or ensemble effect when you're smoking those, versus something that carries over is like a limonene or pinene and things of that, and the different mixtures of those. Certain strains do carry over from flower all the way through really nicely, but sometimes flowers, when they're growing, they will smell dramatically different once they're properly. Even if you harvest them and try and extract immediately, as the plant is maturing, it changes. So how do you guys go about that when you're choosing plants and you're out in a field and you're trying to work on a contract with a grower? As a grower, I'm kind of curious too. Like, what are the things that you're looking at, and how do you typically grade what you're seeing?
Most of that happens with the nose. We'll take a close look at the plants and the total structure. A lot of the bigger indicators for us are vigor and health. If the plant's really vigorous and really healthy and is resistant, and it's easier to identify outdoors sometimes, because if that garden is having issues overall because of where it is, or maybe some of the IPM that wasn't successful or wasn't implemented in the right time, it'll allow the better plants to stand out that are healthier, and so if we lean into those plants that have vigor and are healthy despite the climate and environment they're in, those terpenes and flavors tend to stay truer and hold all the way through the process. To your point about the concentrates differing from the original flower, we see that a lot. If we run the same flower from live resin or cured resin, the concentrate may look slightly different. and sometimes they're identical, and people a lot of times prefer the cured resin over the live resin, which is strange and unique to us. From my perspective, I'm choosing live mostly, but a lot of times too, we'll see an absolutely different profile emerge where it surprises the growers we partnered with. Um, you know, which is sometimes we scratch our head and wonder if they didn't mix bags up or something weird got mixed in there. But yeah, it's not uncommon for everyone to scratch their head and go, "Man, that was surprising. We didn't see that one coming."
Yeah, it's crazy. This year was obviously it will be the biggest outdoor harvest that Michigan has ever seen. And that being said, the marijuana industry has not been not hit by the COVID shortages and things of that nature. And I know that there were a lot of people that rushed to get plants in the ground and underprepared for harvest season. And so I know that there was shortages on dry ice, there were shortages on freezer containers, there were shortages on containers to store dry ice and flour. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and what you saw when it comes to that kind of thing?
Yeah, good point. So that was the biggest miss we saw broadly across the entire spectrum of everyone growing outdoors. Maybe half a dozen groups that we, tried to work with had planned on this, had built freezers, had temporary freezers part of their MRA plan, which was a critical misstep several made in the past, not including the MRA into wheeling up a 53-foot, reefer van that's on wheels doesn't, really fly with the MRA, especially if it's not part of your plan.
Any and all changes.
Yeah, right. So across the board, that was our first question when we rolled up. Said, "Cool, how's this coming down? What's your plan? What's your process? Who's bringing it down? What's the timing look like? And how are you getting it to us if we choose to work with you or to others?" And a lot of groups just said, "Well, I'm going to call my dry ice guy and we'll start bringing it down," which we know isn't going to work. Dry ice is short across the country, across the globe. There's only so many, we call them big blue bombers, those big totes that hold 500 pounds available in Michigan. We work with a couple of the bigger, CO2 suppliers to help facilitate the live residence transactions that we do on a weekly basis as it is. And I think some of the people just they put too many plants out in the garden and kind of got caught by how much work it is to bring it down. Similarly, didn't really plan on the scale and how much flour you can put on dry ice or how that works. Typically, you can get 50 to 60,000 grams in one of those big blue totes. It was frustrating to have people out there that we thought did a good job growing see they didn't have a plan to take it down and that they were going to fail as a result. Across the board, I'm willing to bet half the guys that were outdoor let a lot of stuff die in the vine. Would be embarrassed to show you, how things truly ended up at the end of the season, given the lack of preparedness that we saw, late season from a drying perspective, the space to dry, the process to bring it down, and their ability to either freeze or get dry ice.
Yeah, the importance of preserving those terpenes, whether it's through drying it properly or freezing it immediately, it's just that's all the difference. I mean, there's just nothing you can do with flour that doesn't have any terpenes left on it, other than make it into distillate for edibles or something along those lines. And when you have so much, there's just no value in growing for that. But
proper preparation prevents piss poor
yes,
performance.
Absolutely. That being said, we in years past we've seen a really big dramatic hit on the industry when Croptober has come through. With the variable pricing of flour based on shortages and overages and things of that nature. And then also this year we probably had the most plants outdoor of adult use, just home grows, things of that nature. So, but I know that people took that serious over the last few years that have made adjustments and like you did, kind of got out in the field and started kind of evaluating things early to try to mitigate any of those surprises that were out there. When you guys were preparing for this coming up season, were you guys doing any kind of expanding? Did you get more freezer trailers in advance, or how did you guys go about it? I mean, you mentioned that there was some farms that were harvesting and direct shipping to you guys, and so you guys can only source so much as well, isn't that right?
Yeah. we made that decision out in front of last year's season that it was going to be critical for us to be able to store, a significant amount of supply safely, so that if there are farms that we've chosen to work with, that we have the ability to help facilitate them in being successful coming out of the field. Those that prepared and have freezers are advantageous because they'll be able to preserve high quality product that they can probably sell, over the next 3 to 6 months. Those that we chose to work with didn't. So we can hold about 25 to 30,000 fresh frozen pounds here at Lion Labs in a large walk-in freezer that's, inside a DEA cage and insured for the entire value of it. That's a critical step for us to be successful, that we can source good product. We love outdoor flower from the perspective of terpenes. We get
Well, you
a
have to
higher
store it too
terpene
at the address. Don't you have to store it at the address of your license?
Yes.
So whatever you take in, you have to be prepared to hold on to for. So that's a crucial thing
Right.
too.
Yeah. If you don't have a long-term storage solution, you're in trouble, because dry ice is great and it's the coldest, but you lose 10% every day. And so, sourcing it, getting it, maintaining it, topping it off, and making sure that you're not running dry and running out of it's, critical, that whole piece. So outside of, our ability to store, we didn't really have to make a lot of other structural changes. Our equipment is scaled up as we can basically we run extremely cold. So our infrastructure was ready.
So you had mentioned, Ryan, earlier that you guys over at Lion Labs do the element concentrates, you do the Rise tablets, and then the Dream caramels as well. What do you guys see as far as the market goes? The effect that Croptober has had. Are you guys seen a downturn? Do you see an upturn? What do you think so far you've seen as far as purchasing goes?
So far, we haven't seen much of a change from our perspective. I think prices will continue to come down. Those will probably only come down so far. Like I mentioned, a lot of the guys that grow outdoor that plan on going to fresh frozen, like is often discussed, everyone that grows is the best grower. And those feelings were the same for most of the outdoor guys. I think everyone anticipated that they would bring this down, and everyone that wanted to run fresh frozen would be purchasing it in bulk. The truth is, there's only so much of an appetite for live resin. And just because there's 10 million pounds of fresh frozen that could go to live resin doesn't mean that the market will sustain that or purchase that much. And unfortunately, I think 80% of that outdoor flower is probably going to end up just going to distillate, because they didn't have the infrastructure on site to bring it down to get into a live resin concentrate. So that'll be the big thing that I think is shifting from the intention of what the outdoor grow into to what it'll actually be. I would expect cured resin to also come down, right? It's an easier remediation with the hydrocarbon if the quality is good, versus drying it and trying to sell it into the market as flour. So we probably won't fully see all the impacts of outdoor, until end of December, January, February. A lot of groups that planned on, taking a big move into the outdoor crops and fresh frozen have yet to get their labs up and running, or if they did, they were probably late. And turns out it's just not as easy as pushing the buttons on the machines and making it work.
Really?
A lot of bullish guys out there said, "Oh, the machine's coming. It'll be here in a couple of weeks. We'll be processing in 3 to 4." And in reality, BFS and Lara, and then how you're going to post process and working through those kinks isn't as easy as everyone may the salesman describe to you when you purchase the equipment, let's say.
So Ryan, what are your thoughts on the longevity of outdoor growing as a mainstream source of revenue here in Michigan? It seems like the more plants that come on board, the more people that grow outdoor, the lower that they're going to receive in revenue and return for that product, and then the failure rate of growing in Michigan with the mold and the wet conditions. And this year we had some really crazy weather, wind wise, and really downpoured type of weather that damaged a lot of plants, flooded some areas. I mean, do you see this being a long term play for people, or are they going to have to get involved in processing or indoor cultivation just to kind of compete?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think this is going to be a really interesting year to see how that plays out. From what we saw in the market, I honestly don't think a lot of people are going to be successful with their outdoor crops. In general, there's a lot of flower that went to market. A lot of the groups, as the season changed, realized that they probably had the wrong genetics or maybe the wrong team out in the field. Unfortunately, from what we saw, a lot of those were Michigan folks, which is, hurts being a Michigan guy, having grown since '08. We're a whole team of caregivers here, and we like to see the caregiver guys succeed outside of everyone else. But in reality, they were pretty new to growing in Michigan, much like the rest of us. The guys that we saw that had a little bit better jumpstart were from Washington, Oregon, guys that had experience growing outside at scale. Also, a lot of the plants that are growing off the backside of Mount Baker and that type of climate finish early, have some decent terpenes. We saw a lot of those guys early being the most successful. So, there's always a home in the market for high quality products. If you're able to do a really great job and you have a brand that people trust that's consistently doing well, it's been our experience that's the best way to go. If you want to maintain a brand and stay in the market long term. If your goal was to make a quick buck and throw a bunch of plants outside, those are the groups that we probably walked away from first, because the issues started early and they came on and they're only getting worse. We're hearing of people that are heading for pesticides from mosquito overspray because they weren't familiar with the area and weren't able to protect or even know that it was happening. They lost their crop to bud rot. They might have caught a late frost because they had some, GMO might still be out there in the fields. A lot of guys said they wanted to hang on to that through November. So, yeah, we walked away from the season thinking there's a lot of people that are in trouble.
Yeah, it was crazy, on online, on Facebook, on Instagram and stuff. I saw pictures of people's grows outside, and there was one I saw in particular that was like 10,000 or 20,000 outdoor plants, and each one of them looked like they may have had like a quarter pound on each plant. And it's just like, I feel like you said, unfortunately there wasn't enough forethought or enough education in how outdoor cultivation works to really be successful. It's something you have to dial in. Hopefully, as we move forward, we'll see less and less of that as people learn their lesson and kind of figure out how to mitigate those problems early, just like the market has kind of seemed to mitigate the effects of Croptober as in an economic standpoint, of how much flux we've seen. So, real quick, Ryan, before we're gonna wrap up here in just a minute, but before we go, what's Lion Labs got coming in the future? You guys looking to expand any of your brands with new products? Are you guys looking to expand out into new areas? Are you guys thinking about cultivating? What's going on with Lion Labs?
Yeah, no plans to cultivate or do retail. We want to stay in our lane. We like what we do. We're good at it. We're just going to keep plugging away and getting better. To help us get better, one exciting thing that Lion Labs is doing generally, I can't technically announce the group it is, but we'll be able to speak on that probably in the next week or two. We have a major university partnership that has a DEA license, and we'll be their extraction partner, funding all the research and development. So we're excited about that. When you see test results come back and Element's good about communicating, and a lot of other groups we think that do good quality are starting to communicate, we're trying to identify the unknowns. So you get a concentrate back that's 84% total cannabinoids and 10% terpenes. What's the rest? Is it broken molecules? Is it flavonoids, esters, et cetera? We want to drive our research dollars at the university level to identify flavonoids, quantify them, test for them, esters, et cetera, so we can determine what are those other, unknowns, other cannabinoids, et cetera. How are they medicinally valuable? how do we grow for them, work with our growing partners to enhance the disconnect between, it's not just terpenes, it's not just cannabinoids. We know there's other parts in there that are meaningful, that drive flavor and potency and the entourage effect. So our main focus in that partnership will be to utilize major university tools that we don't have at our ability, train and educate their chemists, and work with them in step to further the whole industry. So we're super excited about being able to do that. I don't think
That's
anyone
awesome,
else
man.
in the world's working on that
Yeah,
yet.
congrats.
So
Yeah, congratulations.
appreciate it. Yeah,
That's awesome.
and that's like our goal is to open source this for everyone, for the betterment of the community. As far as Element goes, we are rolling out a pre-roll. The first couple will start hitting stores next week. It's kind of a test batch R&D run that we're putting out there until we probably roll some, the final packaging and the final product at the end of the year. But they are more live resin than flower. Slightly over 50% will be live resin. We've been working on it for a long time. You'll see, overall numbers between high 40s, low 60s in potency, terpenes between 4 and 8%, just like you'd see, in our live resins. So they're strong and they taste really, really good. I mean, it's hard to get through a whole one, to be honest with you. But that second or third time you pick it up, it tastes just as good as it did the first couple hits. So we have a lot of confidence on them.
And
then with Dream, we have. So the original launch, those will be at a new standard and kind of our temp packaging and temp pre-roll. We want to make sure before we go bigger that we have all the kinks worked out, that the consumers are having a good experience with them, that we know exactly where they should be priced and positioned in retail. We did this with New Standard, one of the grows are associated with, to bring some of the carts that people like the most, similar flavors. So the things that did best for us last year will be available in a pre-roll. And then we look to partner with people that are doing the best job growing to, we'll hunt out the best flower, and we'll take some as full nug finished flower that you would sell to a dispensary. We'll buy that same exact product, and we'll want some of that fresh frozen of those same strains, so we can merge the two and create the best expression of that strain in a pre-roll.
Do like a cured and okay, interesting. That's very cool, man.
Yeah, it's a unique way that we found to infuse it that has proven to be, it'll be exciting. They're great.
I'll be a guinea pig.
I think your time. Go ahead, Tom.
I was gonna say I'll be your guinea pig, man.
Okay, hey, great. Yeah.
Please.
We'll connect later.
Yeah, I don't think the timing could be any more perfect. From what I understand, there's a big market shortage of pre-rolls, so hopefully you guys slide right in there and make a big splash, and I hope everything goes well for you guys over there.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we hope to.
Yeah. Be wary of the trim pre-roll. They're out there lurking. Oh.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah, I tell you what, part of the marketing behind this will be showing everyone the flower going in and the live resin going in. These aren't made from larvae trim or nasty failed flour or whatever people are trying to pass off as a pre-roll today. It's top shelf flour and top shelf live resin from that strain.
Yeah, those sound amazing. So anyway, I know we got some hard outs today. I want to thank Ryan for coming on the show, but I want to really quickly give Tom a chance to give his final thoughts on today, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, Ryan, it's great to see you kicking ass, man. I remember the first time we spoke, and I think it might have been probably the last time we spoke, but a lot has happened since then, right? Do you remember? You recall?
Okay.
And you had mentioned how you were so excited about the dab tabs. And so tell me about that. I mean, is that the same as the Rise tabs? I mean,
No,
I'm not cool.
So,
I'm not hip. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, dab tabs, was something we'd hoped would have had a little better success. It was an interesting delivery method to infuse concentrate into the ceramic tablet, basically. We hope it would help bridge people into concentrates. It's kind of scary if you got a rig and a torch and all kinds of, you could spend $1,000 just getting set up.
Well, a dosing mechanism, right? I mean, that's really important and unique, and it's actually still something that is missing in the market. So, ahead of your time. I'll just state that right now.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah, we tried. They're still out there if you can find them, but we'll let that fade away.
But anyway, great to see you kicking ass. Like to talk
Appreciate
more
it.
later, and we'll see you around, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, Ryan, any final thoughts for today?
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. I think it's a great podcast. We enjoyed watching it before, and appreciate getting to discuss what's happening in Michigan broadly, and for the chance to tell some people about some exciting things we have coming up.
Definitely. And if somebody's trying to get a hold of Lion Labs, how can they get a hold of you?
They can email us. They can hit us up on Instagram. We, on Reddit, we're very prompt in responding to, all the different social media avenues you have out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Ryan, for coming on the show. Thanks for all the guests for listening to us and tuning in. And have a good week. Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Kevin, for
Thanks,
hosting, man. I couldn't do it, dude. Nobody wanted
Impromptu,
to listen to this.
and I think we got through, so that's good.
Congratulations to Bayshore on the baby.
Yes. Congratulations, Ryan.
Little
We'll
Newton.
see you next week.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, guys.